Yeah, go ahead.
Very excited.
Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. October 26th, mark your calendars.
There's going to be a massive Black outreach event in Plainfield, New Jersey. I'm not sure about the time or whatever, but we have like Star Parker, Denzel Washington, and others coming. We're going to break through to the urban communities, and we need to see your face there.
Thank you, and thank you.
Saturday, October the 26th in Plainfield, New Jersey, and I'll be giving you more details as I get more details. But it's on West 7th Street, 825 West 7th Street, Plainfield, New Jersey. And it's called Rose of Sharon Community Church. I was just up there today with the committee looking at the facility, and it's beautiful. Job training, job readiness. We have employers that are coming offering jobs, and I believe that they're going to have buses going into the urban communities and bringing them there. And we need to see you there also.
Signing off, this is Barbara from Hollywood.
Once again, hello everyone, and welcome to the next edition of Women of Another View. I'm your host, Doreen Finkel, along with Barbara from Harlem, Susan Jarima, and Pat Rivera. And this next edition, we're going to be continuing our topic about education and sustainability, and we're also going to be talking about how it relates to you in the community. And a while ago, I had Commissioner Rothschild on my radio show, and we basically were bringing it down to a student level. And I want to introduce my guest once again, Commissioner Rothschild from Carroll County, Maryland, and Bader Parmar, who's a professor at Morris County Community College. And what we had talked about on the radio show was that when you go buy a house, okay, what are some of the things you look for in a sustainable community? Go ahead.
Well, I need to rephrase the question, because what I might look for in a sustainable community might not be what the government demands in a sustainable community. In fact, one of the problems with the sustainable community initiatives across the United States is the government is so bold as to presume they know what the one best way is for us to live. You will see vernacular throughout these sustainable community initiatives, such as compact, walkable communities that promote community interaction. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? I have 3 acres. I don't necessarily want any community interaction while I'm at my home. You will see vernacular such as healthier, better balanced. I don't even know what those terms mean. People say, Commissioner, you know what that means, healthier and better balanced? I said, I don't know, maybe we're all going to eat lettuce and carrot sticks. I'm not sure what it means. So, but I will tell you this, I receive calls from across America, and there are certain symptoms that are identifiable when a local community's municipal master plan has been infected with the United Nations Agenda 21 Sustainable Communities leftist perspective. And here are some of the things that you can see in your master plan if it's infected. You will see the 3 E's, the mark of Agenda 21. Environment, economy, social equity. It looks like a pretzel, 3 circles. Environment, economy, social equity. You will see words that will make you feel uncomfortable. Property owners, landowners, or the secured lien holders has now been replaced with terms such as stakeholder. You will see references to social justice, climate change, catastrophic sea level rise. Private property might be referenced as a source of social injustice because it is a source of the principal accumulation of wealth and therefore is unsustainable. And as I talk to citizens across the United States, they all have some manifestation of these characteristics in these plans, but I caution them, do not go in front of your Planning and Zoning Commission and accuse them of implementing Agenda 21. They will laugh at you and deny it. But what you can show them is, number one, that these plans will attempt to socially re-engineer a community, and number two, they will have a tax on private property rights. And I tell citizens, when you approach these planning and zoning members, do not accuse them of implementing Agenda 21. Simply tell them that their policies are suspiciously identical.
Right. That's a good way.
Well, we're already getting Sustainable New Jersey implemented in New Jersey already through what is known as Sustainable New Jersey. And another way we see redistribution of wealth is in New Jersey is something known as the Abbott ruling. Some of you may be familiar with the New Jersey Supreme Court decision called the Abbott decision, where it takes money from certain districts in New Jersey and sends them to inner city communities thinking that money is going to solve their academic problem. For example, you'll find that in some parts of most of New Jersey, your property taxes, approximately 60% of it is for schools.
Yes.
And you would assume that's all across the state, but not necessarily so. For example, in Camden, only 19% of their property taxes goes to school. Where do they get the rest from? You and me, who live in other districts and other counties. We have to pay more to send that money to what is known as the Abbott districts. On average, New Jersey pays approximately $12,000 per student per year to educate them. In Abbott districts, it's anywhere from $24,000 to $27,000. That would be okay if we were making a positive difference, but we're not. We actually have a higher school dropout rate, children with higher crime situations going on in these school districts, drug issues, etc., etc. So how do we fix it? I'm going to give you a bill, because I believe you sitting here must be used to motivate you, to educate you, and to take you into the next step, which is action. In the state of New Jersey, we have a bill in front of, actually still in committee. This bill is by Assemblyman Anthony Bucco on the Assembly side, and Senator Bucco, the father, on the Senate side. I'm going to give you two sets of numbers. One is going to have the letter A, which is for the Assembly, and the other is going to have the letter S, which is for the Senate. The bill is titled New Jersey Parental Rights and Property Tax Reduction Act. It's important to write the name, because when you do call these legislators' offices, they're going to ask you not just for the number, they'll ask for the name. So it's the New Jersey Parental Rights, because that's important, Parental Rights and Property Tax Reduction Act. If you're calling the Assemblyman or Assemblywoman, let them know you're referencing Assembly A3875, A3875, and when you're calling your senator, let them know you're referencing Senate Bill S2674, the New Jersey Parental Rights and Property Tax Reduction Act. What this does is allocates the same amount of money per student no matter where they're living. That is how property taxes could be reduced, and that is how we treat each student fairly, by treating them equally. That's right, equally. Thank you.
And let's go to our panel here. Okay.
Yes. Commissioner Rothschild, I want to thank you for the information that you sent me recently as we're battling a redevelopment plan right here in Wayne, New Jersey, or actually across the golf course in Wayne, New Jersey. I'd like to ask you to talk about for a minute. Last week, a lot of things were buzzing on the radio and on the internet. Rush Limbaugh was talking very much about Stanley Kurtz's book, Spreading the Wealth, talking about Obama's plan to remove our property rights and regionalize us, how he stacked the dominoes during his first administration, and now he has set them to being knocked down. But earlier this summer, HUD issued their long-awaited proposal affirmatively furthering fair housing, which, for all intents and purposes, removes local zoning from the local communities. Could you elaborate on that for us, please?
Yes. Thank you. I want to say two things with respect to this. Number one, I want to make it clear that the sustainable movement is a direct attack on the middle class and suburban housing. Maurice Strong, who was the godfather of the sustainability movement, stated, quote, "Current lifestyles and consumption patterns of the affluent middle class involving high meat intake, the use of fossil fuels, electrical appliances, home and workplace air conditioning, and suburban housing are not sustainable. Isn't the only hope for the planet that the industrialized civilization's collapse? Isn't it our responsibility to bring that about?" I want to make it clear, there's no ambiguity here, and that is what's happening with our policies at the federal and state level. Now, moving on to HUD, for the last 30 or 40 years, we've all supported something called Equal Housing Opportunity, EHO. And the premise of equal housing opportunity is any American, regardless of their race, religion, creed, color, if they've got the money to move to buy a house, they should be able to live anywhere they want to. And I support that 100%, as I think most Americans do. But we want to step beyond that now. HUD has said, no, that's not enough. We are determined not to have just equal housing opportunity. We are going to forcibly gerrymander counties and jurisdictions. So they created this new program of egalitarianism called Affirmatively Furthering Housing Education. And if a local official takes the HUD Community Block Grant to help support affordable housing, HUD is now saying, no, you've got to only build that in certain neighborhoods that we deem appropriate. And recent rulings in New York and Pennsylvania, those rulings were, and I'm quoting them, not me, had to be in areas that were less than 3% black and less than 7% Hispanic. You say, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Government Official, but we don't have any zoning that will accommodate multifamily dwellings in there. These are all zoned for estate homes on 3-acre lots. Oh, sorry, Mr. County Official, you have exclusionary zoning. And we're going to interpret that as a de facto indication of discrimination. We're going to take you into court unless you agree to rezone your beautiful suburban neighborhoods and now allow HUD-funded, subsidized housing to be built within your communities. Okay, this is not housing opportunity. This is egalitarianism. This is forced gerrymandering of existing communities by the federal government. It is unconstitutional. And I tell every Republican official, you better make sure you understand all the hooks in these left-wing grant programs as a right-wing official to make sure that you don't get yourself into something that's going to create everlasting problems in your communities. And when you see these grants, you should roll up the carpets and run the other direction.
Thank you. And let's go.
Can I take a minute?
I mean, I'm flabbergasted. Now, as you can see, I'm, 85% black, the other 15% is Indian. And I was 20 years old when, at that time I was married, we purchased our first home in Queens Village. And basically we had Italians that were our neighbors. In other words, look at how far we've gone backwards in America. I mean, we had the money, we had the down payment, my husband was working, and we could live anywhere we wanted to live. We didn't need HUD. And we wanted to move out of the urban area because of the violence and things where we wanted a home. And no one denied that to us. But we worked, we saved, and we can live where we want. And I've purchased homes since then, and they've been in mixed neighborhoods. We didn't need the government to tell us that neighborhoods were discriminating against people like me. I mean, we have gone backwards in this country, I believe, by not doing due diligence in searching out the people we've been voting for, putting into office, and sometimes I believe we become too complacent. And we need to really step up to the plate.
Thank you for that. I had the honor and privilege of speaking at Freedom Fest in Trenton, which was a black empowerment movement that is to educate inner city black men and women about the difference between freedom and dependency.
Absolutely.
And this, I was asked to speak on the 50th anniversary of Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech. And my speech at that time was titled, Self-Reliance Leads to Self-Respect.
Absolutely.
And I think that is the core of what liberty is. Liberty is that freedom. And unfortunately, we have an entire segment of our population that has been misled by so-called civil rights leaders who've turned out to be, according to Ms. King, civil wrong leaders who have misled them,
yes,
who have enslaved them and made them dependent on the system. So I truly believe that Dr. King died for a whole lot more than what the African American community is seeing and living up to. You know, in the speech I asked, what did he die for? Is my life worth Dr. King's death?
And I'm glad you didn't call their names because I almost want to puke when I hear their names. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Seriously.
Okay, so let's get back to the sustainable community. And what I want to do is to, and I'm going to go to the commissioner on this, what can these guys do in their local community to sort of bring this, I guess, to their local officials' attention? And you had once said to me that the local officials may not even know may not understand what's going on.
Well, I think there's two elements to this question here. Number one, the problem that I'm seeing as a fairly new elected official is there's a tremendous push to go along, to get along once you're elected.
Right.
And I think Doreen asked me in the interview the other day, would you encourage people to run for office, if they really like people and blah, blah, blah. I said, well, no, if you really like people and you really want to be liked, if you want to be liked too much, don't run for office. Because the natural tendencies in office are to do what's popular in order to appease people, in order to get votes, and you have to be willing to take the hits. So if you don't have a thick skin, you don't run for office because you'll do the wrong thing. And these elected officials get into office and they hear all of this happy talk. Affordable, sustainable communities, workable, compact, sustainable this, sustainable that, green. It's gobbledygook. The bottom line is this: it is an attempt by government to infringe on private property rights. It is an attempt by government to interfere with the private sector and free markets. It is an attempt by government to force development templates on communities which run against what the free market would drive in and of itself. So you've got to go in there and you've got to shake up these local officials and get them to open their eyes and wake up to the fact that they are being sold a bill of goods. These are nothing more than a bunch of happy talk terms as a vehicle for impinging on our private property rights, forcing the unwanted re-engineering of our communities against their will. And then you have to tell them something that they're not used to hearing. You've got to tell them you want them to do their job. And they're going to say, what do you mean? And you're going to say, I want you to uphold your oath of office and oppose anything which extends beyond the constitutional limits of government. It is not government's job to re-engineer communities. It is not government's job to determine the type of housing. It is not government's job to determine what lifestyle is happy and healthy for any member of this panel. It is not government's job to feed us a bunch of crap in the form of happy talk to try to seduce us into doing something which is not in our own best interest. You've got to shake them, wake them up and say, uphold your oath of office, just say no, and demand they pass resolutions against these kinds of interfering master plans that attempt to change communities.
Amen.
And I want to go to Professor. You see students on an ongoing basis, and you see the economy and the world the way it is. What do you say to your students?
Well, the first thing I try to do is, for students, the only economy they understand right now is their grades. That's the student currency. They trade in grades and letters. That's why earlier I made that example in the previous show that, when students get a grade on my quiz, I do truly let them believe that I'm going to take that A away from them. So when I get students that, it's like a bell curve. The overwhelming majority of students, about 65 to 70%, will get a C. The remaining 30%, half will be AB, half will be DF. So if I could please, economically speaking, 75, 80% of the students, that's great. So what I do is I let them believe if they got an F, I'm going to give them a C. If they got a D, I'm going to give them a C. And if the students got the B or an A, I'm going to take that from them and give them a C. So what I find is in the next quiz, they tell me they're not going to even bother to study because they're going to end up with a C. So what difference does it make? They have not yet put 1 + 1 together yet. They don't realize what I'm talking about until they begin to see the lecture develop. So they need to understand the economy at the language they speak. And that is, of course, grades. And then I asked them, so why are you in college? Why are you here? And then overwhelmingly because they want to get a good job to make more money and to succeed. And I say, okay, now you are empowering yourself to get that to move up, to buy a house, to get the 2 cars in the garage, the white picket fence, the summer home, etc. And that is the intent of our founding fathers, is for each one of us to be able to work and achieve and be able to get these goods. It's not the role of government to give it to you. Because whatever government gives, government can take away. It's holding you hostage.
Absolutely.
That's right. Okay, I'd like to go to some questions and answers. Do we have any questions? Everybody's being silent today.
Doreen, I was going to say, do people really think they own their property? We don't own our property. We rent it.
From the bank.
If you don't think that's true, try missing your tax payments. We stopped owning our property how many years ago? 60, 70, 80 years ago with property tax? 100 years ago? We don't own our property anymore. We rent it. And that's how they feel justified in being able to control what we do with it. That's not a question. Yes.
That's right.
I have a question. With this redevelopment and Wayne's master plan and with this bill of goods they're trying to sell to the residents, they're always talking about work, live, play. What's an effective way to go back at them? Because quite honestly, we have no commercial, we don't have commercial ratables in the town. So I think they like to spin things, and I would just like to know a more effective way of refuting what they're saying.
Let me respond to that. Work, live, play, or compact communities where people can live adjacent to where they work, that's the vernacular you'll hear. But there's a premise, and the premise is not true all the time. The premise is that people want to live where they work. And I can tell you, I know as a fact from talking to citizens who told me, Commissioner, we used to live only 5 minutes away from where I worked. We moved out of that area. We didn't want to live in that kind of urban or semi-urban environment. We deliberately moved out here to Carroll County to an agricultural area because we did not want to be adjacent to commercial office parks and commercial development templates. So the very assumption by government that that's what Americans want is simply not true. Those people that want to live where they work, guess what? God bless you, move into the city. And those of us that want to live in the country, surrounded by farms, we drive 20 minutes to work. I have a simple message for government: leave us alone.
That's right. Absolutely.
Okay, anybody else?
Okay. In your county, Commissioner, was your success easy, hard fought? How many people did you have to win over? Did you have a majority to begin with? Could you talk about the history of that?
The question was it hard fought? It was very hard fought, because when I first recognized the influence of a globalist Marxist impact on our plan, I was attacked viciously in the media. The joke around the county was, Commissioner, you got to be careful. You got to be careful not to park your car crooked in the front space. In your parking space, should be on the front page of the newspaper. Yes, the left responds with a series of ad hominem attacks. They will call you a conspiracy theorist, a tinfoil head, a racist, a bigot, retrograde, living in the past. They will launch a series of ad hominem attacks not backed up by any facts. They will never take the facts head on. They won't deny that they're gerrymandering with property rights. They won't deny that they're choking out farmers' development rights. They won't deny the shift in communities. They will resort in personal attacks. Fortunately, I was elected with 4 other Republicans, and some were conservative, some were not, but I was able to convince the 4 of them that, in fact, this was an attack on our sovereignty, this was an attack on our way of living, this was an attack on our free choice, and I was able to get a unanimous vote to pull out of the ICLEI.
Commissioner, can you explain what ICLEI is, ICLEI?
International Communities for Local Environmental Initiatives. ICLEI is what I would call the propagation arm for United Nations Agenda 21 Sustainability Policy. And UN Agenda 21 Sustainability Policy is a green Trojan horse. It is a Trojan horse masquerading as being a concern for the environment, when in fact its belly is full of red Marxist doctrine and an attempt to displace free market capitalism with government-centric control over the factors of production in America today: land, labor, and capital.
Thank you.
Most of the taxes are paid to teachers in all the states, and Scott Walker did something about it. And And if it isn't done, we have tremendous taxes that we pay in Wayne to the teachers. And the teachers make a lot of money. I'm not against teachers, I was one myself. But when you don't have the money, then everybody has to contribute a small amount to reduce the amount of taxes that the communities pay. And that's the crux of the matter. Most of the money goes to the teachers, and no one is standing up to the teachers and making them make concessions so that the taxes are reduced. And also, most people do not know that Common Core does not work. Just as you said, you gave the statistics. Ask 99% of the population, and they won't know about Common Core, number one. And number two, they won't know that it's unsuccessful. We don't have enough publicity given to these facts so that the people become educated and realize that Common Core is a farce. And I have teachers that I know, and they don't want Common Core because their creativity is taken away, and they don't own their classes anymore. So it's a tremendous problem, and I think part of it is the fact that people are totally uninformed. And until the population becomes informed as to what is going on, nothing is going to happen in this country.
You hit on several things, if I may try to remember and answer them all. As far as the cost, well, we do find in New Jersey the cost of education is very high. Actually, public education costs a lot more than even some private schools. And the private schools have a higher achievement level at a cheaper price. So more money is never the right answer. What is the problem? Why does it cost so much? Well, obviously, collective bargaining is a part of the problem. Just to publicly disclose, I am a card-carrying, dues-paying union member. Not because I want to, but because I have no choice. I truly believe in a right to work, which means if I wanted to opt out of unionship, I should be able to opt out of unionship. But another way to solve the problem is to look at administrative costs in education. We have 600, if I remember correctly, 600 superintendents, district superintendents, and 21 county superintendents. So there's some duplicative services there. Every superintendent has an office, staff, etc. I'm going to speed up my answer because of timing. But what we could do is eliminate some of those duplicative districts, 600 of them. That would save New Jersey $200 million per year. $200 million can be saved by resorting, rather than district superintendents, to county superintendent and school principals, which we already have. There's an enormous amount of duplicative. Teachers, I love teachers. And thank you for teaching the children. Some of them you may have wanted to slap every now and then. Thank you for teaching them and being the good teacher that you were, I am sure. And we need to reward good teachers. But we also need the ability to remove bad teachers. Because a bad teacher makes all of us look bad. And we don't need a union that protects the rights of a bad teacher. Don't tell me you're looking out for the students, because they're not. No. They're not.
Just two real quick remarks. Number one, approximately 2 out of every $3 spent in our county goes towards education. All we hear is we could do better if we only had more money. I'm going to solve the problem with one word: competition. If the public schools had to compete with the private schools for our tax dollars, they would completely change their business models. Instead of teaching what government once taught, they would teach what our parents once taught. Instead of staffing themselves up with excessive numbers of administrators and resource teachers that don't even directly engage students, they would focus more on curriculum delivery, they would focus more on results, and it would fix itself. So I'm a firm believer that the best solution to America's education problem is competition.
We want to thank our viewers for watching us today, and I just want to remind you, we also have another show on our TV show. It's called The Lunch Pail and the Professor. It's actually with Dr. Al Frank and Jack James. And thank you very much.